So your grandfather, who would be my great-grandfather, came from the Middle East. We don't know exactly where, either Lebanon or Syria.
He came from Lebanon.
Okay. And then started in New York, eventually moved to South Carolina, bought a donkey, was selling stuff. And then he had a lot of different buildings. And your dad purchased one of those, which was a furniture store.
Sorry to confuse you. So my grandfather opened a store, a true store, and sold everything from ties to shoes to overalls to sheets. And my father went to work for him. They didn't get along, so my father went out on his own and started what we call a wholesale business, where he sold dry goods, which are textile products, to other stores.
Right. Wholesale would be like Rádio. Yeah.
And so my dad decided to, he had a little money to invest. He decided to build some buildings. And he built a little shopping center and rented one of the spaces to a furniture store. And the furniture store, unbeknownst to him, wasn't doing as well as he thought it did. And they moved out in the middle of the night. And he came to work one day and it was locked up and it was cleaned out. And they obviously owed him some rent, which is why they left in the middle of the night. A couple of weeks later, he had a knock on his door, and it was a carpet salesman who wondered where the furniture store went because he had done business with the furniture store. And my father says, well, they're gone. And the carpet salesman says, well, can you let me in so I can get my samples? And my father said, sure. So he let him in, and within an hour, the carpet salesman had put my father in the carpet business. And the rest is history. And so I came back to work after college, and we've built and grown the business ever since.
So all of this is almost a complete freak accident.
You know, Foster, I mean, so much of life is true serendipity, which is, you know, just random acts that are seemingly unconnected that somehow point you down the path that you end up on. And, you know, if my father he could have said no, and who knows, I might have been an accountant or a doctor or who knows what. But since my father got in the flooring business and he had done well with it and I had an affinity for it, things just work out.
Yeah. So when did you start working for Hodge Carpets?
Truth be known, I started working when I was 14 years old.
Truth be known. Yeah. Southern. Truth be known, I started working when I was 14 years old.
I started working after school when I was 14 because I wanted my own money. And my dad, he paid me $1 an hour, and I would work for a couple hours after school, and then I'd work during the summertime, and I got to learn the business from the ground up. I worked on the crews. I was on my hands and knees helping them install flooring, and when I got out of college, it was kind of understood that I'd come back to work for the family business.
Yeah. So two things. First, when my dad says the crews, he's referring to the crew of people, like the team, and not actually a cruise ship. Secondly, do you have any idea how much $1 would have been worth then? We have a phone call coming in. No worries. Would that have been like $3 an hour or like $8?
Oh, no, it would probably worth $8 or $10 now, I would think. Yeah.
So it wasn't that ridiculous.
So I was making $1 an hour. That was probably less than minimum wage. And minimum wage now is what, $8 or $9, $10 an hour?
In South Carolina.
In South Carolina, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also illegal for 14-year-olds to work.
Yeah, but of course back then a hamburger cost 19 cents too.
So, Dad, something I've thought about a lot as Alexia and I have started this business is kind of the idea that we have this entrepreneurial, strike in our blood. Do you think that entrepreneurs are born? Like, are they just, people just have it in them, or are they kind of created through experiences?
God, I mean, I'm a firm believer in genetics. That's something you can make a lot of choices in your life, but you can't choose your ancestors. I mean, that's something you're stuck with, and you just got to look at history. I mean, on both sides of my family and your family's, Foster, we were all self-sufficient, and and I think if you see your if you see your father and your grandfather and your aunts and uncles make it their own way, and make a living the way they want to make it, you say, that's what I want to do too. It certainly is a feeling of accomplishment, but it's a certain amount of freedom, and probably a certain amount of hard-headedness that is genetic that you can't get over.
Can you explain the term hard-headedness?
Well, that's probably a southern term, but hard-headed. We all know what hard-headed means, and Alexia probably doesn't. But
there are three people in this room, and one of us definitely does not know what that means.
I mean, hard-headed person, and it's an endearing term. I don't use it derogatory. Is that someone who's headstrong and is set in their ways and somewhat stubborn. But they're not easily swayed and are confident in the decisions they're making.
Yeah, I think stubborn is a relatively accurate.
Yeah.
Stubborn in the positive connotation of the word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you feel about the fact that we come from this long line? Actually, before I go there, how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 6 brothers and sisters.
And how many would you consider entrepreneurs?
All of them. Yeah, I really do. And I look at my aunts and I truly look at my aunts and uncles on both sides of the family, and they were all entrepreneurs. My grandfather on my mother's side was a farmer. I mean, that is the ultimate entrepreneur. I mean, you talk about a guy who makes a living out of planting stuff in the ground and digging it up and selling it. I mean, if that's not an entrepreneur, there's no such thing. We have doctors and lawyers and teachers. I mean, teacher is an entrepreneur. They work for themselves. They're selling their talent. So I would think that almost 100% of our immediate family were all entrepreneurs.
Yeah, this is kind of a point where I get into the weeds a little bit. That, for example, your eldest son, my brother Camden, who has been on the show, is a lawyer, but you would consider him an entrepreneur?
I would, especially the type of law he practices. His the amount of money he makes is directly dependent on the amount of work that he produces, and I think that's a key component in the entrepreneurial spirit, is that you're duly rewarded for the amount of work you put in.
So how would you define, just in a very loose sense, entrepreneurship compared to what? Because it sounds like you're talking about anybody can be an entrepreneur, even if you're working within a company, and let's say you're like a marketing analyst, but you're still a go-getter. Is that person an entrepreneur?
Well, I mean, it certainly is. I mean, it's a buzzword in today's business world. I mean, entrepreneurship is, that's like the most glowing adjective that you can give to a businessman.
That's what our generation says when we don't have a job.
Sure.
When we're podcasters.
Even in the corporate world, I think they try to breed a sense of entrepreneurship, and that's people that are taking risk and thinking new ideas and think of new ways to make money. On our little level, an entrepreneur truly controls his destinies. He doesn't have a boss. He doesn't have to ask for permission to do things. He risks his own time and his own capital to pursue his ideas and his dreams, and he has nobody else to blame. So that's different than working 9 to 5 for FedEx. I mean, it's
getting a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yeah, whether you show up or not, whether you produce or not. I don't get a paycheck unless I produce, and I have nobody to blame myself, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. I think that was beautifully put. So something that I know has been very integral to our business for years and years and years, the slogan of my dad's business, like the motto, the logo, was when your name is on the store, you care a lot more. Because Hodge Carpets, now Hodge Floors, literally has our namesake in the business. And I think Alexia and I have a little bit of that, just because we are so public facing. People hear us talk every day, and there's this idea of like, hey, you know us, and that really holds us accountable. Like, it holds us to a level of customer service. That wasn't a question, but do you want to follow up with that?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Another Southern colloquialism.
I don't think that's Southern, just the way you said it.
But our slogan, "When your name's on the store, you care a lot more." I mean, what that does, it sums up that if you got a problem, you can call me. I'm going to answer the phone. We live in a small town where you know our names, you know who we are. We live in the community. You go to church with us, and we're going to take care of you. We have to, because if we don't, you're going to tell your friends and neighbors, and our business is sunk. The same way with yours, Foster. I mean, you're building a business mainly by word of mouth. Yeah, you can do all the advertising you want, but you're trying to create raving fans that are going to talk about you, and that's all we've been doing for the last 45 years is creating this this base of customers that will tell their friends and neighbors and their children about the only place to buy floor covering from. And it takes a while to build a brand, but when you're invested, and you're invested as an entrepreneur, you got to take it personally. You have to. If you disengage yourself from it, you're just another corporate goon. I mean, it's this is our life. I mean, you wear it like a second skin. I mean, you really do. And I can't imagine going through life and everybody has a way. Everybody figures out a way to make a living. I mean, you have to, or you die.
Yeah.
You're gonna make $1 somehow, but the entrepreneurs do it and get a sense of satisfaction I don't think anybody who works 9 to 5 ever feels.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you explain what a corporate goon would be?
Well, the world is, I don't know the statistic, but small business in the United States accounts for, I want to say it's over 50% of the jobs.
Yeah, I think it's like 62%.
So, we get overlooked because, in my small company, we employ about 25 people. But you take all the Hodge floors in Spartanburg County, and all of a sudden 25 times, 1,000, that's 25,000 people that are employed by small companies. It takes one BMW that employs 4,000, 5,000 people. I'm not saying those people are bad people, but it's different. I mean, they work for a $1 billion company, and it's a different corporate culture. And I didn't mean corporate goon in a derogatory manner.
In a derogatory way.
Derogatory way.
Derogatory.
No,
I know exactly what you mean. Just the idea of having a greater degree of connection of what the actual business does compared to, I don't know, if someone works at Goldman Sachs, they probably don't actually care like what's happening at the top of Goldman Sachs. At Hodge Carpets, your livelihood is quite literally on the line.
Yeah, every day. And the folks that work for me depend on me to point them in the right direction.